Okay, Chair, you are now live.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this virtual overview and scrutiny committee meeting that is being conducted with members and officers at various locations, communicating via audio, video, and online. There is also the opportunity for the public and the press to listen and view proceedings. Before the meeting starts, I would like to invite the committee, member and scrutiny officer to explain how proceedings will work and to confirm that members, officers and registered speakers are in attendance. Hilary, please.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to say that Anna Govea, who normally clerks this meeting, unfortunately is unable to attend, so I am acting on her behalf. When I call your name, can you please indicate that you are in attendance, and this will confirm that you can hear and be heard. Councillor Bryant?
Yes.
Collins?
Hello.
Hone?
Present.
Hunter?
Present.
Levitt? McNally?
Present.
Nash?
Sorry, present.
Ungwala?
Present.
Tyson?
Yes.
Claire Billing?
Yeah.
Morgan Derbyshire?
Present.
We have executive members, Martin Steers-Hanscom,
Present.
Ian Albert,
Yep.
Elizabeth Dennis Harburg. Elizabeth did say she was going to sit in the background because she was just watching, so she may have maybe doing that. Officers, we have Anthony Roche.
Yeah, present.
Nigel Smith.
Present.
Helen Flagg.
Present.
Rachel Cooper.
Present.
Steve Crowley.
Yes, present. We are also expecting Councillor Hoskins. However, he may well not be joining till later on, as
Okay, and
later on.
thank you. We're also expecting Councillor Clark as well, who may join us a bit later. Chloe Gray.
Present.
Chris Robson.
Present.
William Edwards is on IT, and my name is Hilary Deneen. Extracts from the remote and partly remote meetings protocol are included with the agenda, and the full version is available on the Council's website, which includes information regarding live streaming, noise interference, rules of debate, voting, and Part 2 items. Members are requested to ensure that they are familiar with the protocol. With regard to voting, this will be done using the raise hand button. So I will ask members to raise their hand when voting for, against, and abstain, and then tally the votes. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? In that case, I'll hand over to the chair, Councillor David Levitt. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, can I just jump in? It's Kate Aspinwall. I just want to check my audio's working. I wasn't on the roll call.
I do apologise.
I'm here, am I?
Yeah, you're fine, Kate, and not coming over loud and clear. Thanks. Thank you, Hilary.
And Councillor Clark has just arrived, Chair.
Thank you. Good evening, Paul. Apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillor Claire Strong, and Councillor Morgan Derbyshire will be substituting for her, and also from Councillor Adam Ruggiero-Kakir, and Councillor Claire Billing will be substituting for him. First item is item 3, the minutes of the meeting of the 19th of January 2021. I would like to propose that we take as read and approve as a true record the minutes of the meeting of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee held on the 19th of January 2021. Can I have a seconder, please, for that?
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you, Kate. Any comments from the meeting, matters arising? I've got no hands up, so we'll take a vote on that, please. Hilary, if you could run us through the vote.
Yes, if those who are in favour of approving the minutes, please can you raise your hand now, your virtual hand, that is, not your physical hand. Thank you. That's enough to approve. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I therefore authorise the committee member and scrutiny officer to apply my electronic signature and initials to the approved minutes. Notification of any other business, I have none. Chairman's announcement. First one is we've got a lot to get through tonight. We've got a lot of items, a lot of pages to get through, so we'll try and keep it as tight as we can for time, please. If we get to 9 o'clock, then we'll take a few minutes for a comfort break at 9. In accordance with the council policy, this meeting is being audio recorded as well as filmed. The audio recordings will be available on mod.gov and the film recording via the NHDC YouTube channel. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under Chair's announcements on the agenda. I will be taking item 21, the commercial update part 2 report, immediately prior to item 18, the part 1 report of the same name. Agenda item 6, public participation, we have none. Item 7, urgent or general exception items. We have one this time. I, as chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, have agreed for a part 2 item regarding contract procurement waiver referral, which was not previously notified, to be considered by Cabinet at the meeting due to be held on the 16th of March 2021. Called in items, there are none. Resolutions of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee is item 9 on the agenda, starting at page 17 on the reports. Hilary.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to just draw your attention to the last 3 items on the report. Page 19, the draft design SPD. This has now been included in the report entitled Local Plan Implementation, which is being considered later this evening. Page 20, regarding outdoor pool opening times. A report including consideration of the outdoor pool opening times is due to be considered by Cabinet on the 16th of March. And again on page 20, the viewing figures of meetings. The figures for attendance in 2019-20 at physical meetings and in 2021 at virtual meetings, plus figures of those viewing for viewing the recordings a week after the meetings, have been included in the performance indicator report for information, and Rachel will take you through that. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any further comments or anything from anybody on that particular item? No. So can I have a proposer for that one, please? Do we have a proposer? I'll happily propose it. Do I have a seconder for that report?
I'll second.
Thank you. We have no debate on that one by the look of it. Nobody's hands are up. So just go to the vote that we accept the report.
Okay, if members just would like to raise their hand if they are in agreement with noting the report. That's accepted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hilary. Item 10, Overview and Scrutiny Committee Work Programme. Again, over to Hilary, and it starts on page 21 of your agenda.
Thank you, Chair. The report is as presented. The work programme is attached at Appendix A, and you will see that the first meeting includes a presentation by the Leader of the Council. As detailed at minute 77 of the minutes of the last meeting, members resolved that members be requested to inform the Chair and the committee member and scrutiny manager of any items that Settle and LEP should concentrate on when attending the Overview and Scrutiny meeting. I have to report that I have had no suggestions from members so far. I will be inviting Settle to attend either the June or July meeting, depending on how much business is on those. Can you please advise the Chair and myself of any areas of focus? Okay.
Thank you, Hilary.
I have got a little bit more. So the LEP I'll invite to a later date. The forward plan is at Appendix B as per usual, and the corporate peer challenge action plan as it relates to overview and scrutiny is attached to Appendix C. And you'll see from the agenda that you're getting an update on the action plan as a whole this evening. Have you got any questions?
No. Okay, then I'm going to propose that. Oh, Sam.
Yeah, Chair. Just on the forward plan for ONS, I was sort of vaguely under the impression that there was going to be a task and finish group into and sort of more discussion about the waste contract, but that seems to have disappeared off all our documents. I can't remember where that got to. Might have gone into FARC world. I'm not sure if the chair of FARC can advise, but I know there was certainly going to be some stuff about that, and that doesn't seem to appear anywhere. So
Yeah,
am I looking at the wrong documents, or have I got this
it's
wrong?
in the work programme, Sam. We discussed it the last meeting, and it was where we were short of resources, so we'll be carrying it forward. Thanks. Yes, you're up.
Can I just confirm it certainly hasn't dropped off my radar, Councillor?
Sorry, I was obviously looking at the wrong paper.
That's all right.
Just dropping back on the thing about the questions for Settle. We were discussing this at the briefing yesterday, and one suggestion I was putting forward, and I don't know if this will trigger any sort of suggestions, is that we look at Settle's approach to the supply of affordable and social rented housing and where they're going with that in future, with whatever they've got planned in the future. Just be nice to get an update of where they stand at the moment and see what projects they've got in process. Any other comments on that particular area? Any other comments on this report? Any other suggestions from anybody? Nothing on there. Okay, so the recommendations are that the committee prioritises proposed topics for inclusions in the work programme attached to Appendix A, and where appropriate determines the high-level form and time of the scrutiny input. 2.2, that the committee, having considered the forward plan attached as Appendix B, suggests the list of items to be considered at its next meeting on the 15th of June and beyond. And that 2.3, the corporate peer challenge action plan extract as attached to Appendix C be considered. I'll propose those recommendations. Do I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second that for you, Chair.
Thank you, Kate. And can we go to the vote on that, please, Hilary?
Yes, if you'd like to raise your hand if you're in agreement with those recommendations, please. And that is sufficient to carry. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hilary. Moving on to item 11, which is the annual report of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee 2020-21, which starts on page 37. And just before I go to Hilary on that one, as this is the last Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting of this civic year, I'd just like to thank everybody who's taken part in these meetings, all the members of the committee. Particularly, I'd like to thank those executive members and other members who've taken part in these meetings over the last year or so as well. It's very much appreciated to have your input and have you presenting the reports. And of course, we mustn't forget the staff, Hilary, Anna, and all the others who've taken part and helped with these committee meetings and made them work, and particularly helpful during the briefings. We've had many officers at the briefings beforehand and that who've picked up on a lot of the points and been bringing them forward to the meetings and including them in the reports and making reports nice and comprehensive. So just a big thank you for everybody for that. So Hilary.
Thank you, Chair. That's very kind. So this is a draft of the report that will go to Annual Council. The statistics have not yet been completed because this meeting actually forms part of the year that the report refers to. So I will be completing those statistics after this evening. In paragraph 7, safeguarding, I've actually got the wrong date in there, and it should actually say that the annual update was received in December 2020. And in paragraph 10, public participation, as we've already mentioned, we've highlighted the physical meetings and the virtual viewings, and that will be considered under the performance indicator report. And I just wondered if you wanted me to put anything in the annual report to show those sorts of figures, or to demonstrate the engagement online as opposed to in person?
Yeah, I think that's quite a good idea. We've got a little bit for X people viewed next in the report. So I think it'd be a good idea to put something in and just do the comparator to last year if we could, Hilary, because it does show the increase in public participation, and it makes a very good case for continuing these virtual meetings and hybrids and whatever we end up with in the future, and making sure that they stay online. So yeah, if we could put something along those lines in, please. Thanks, Hilary. Any other comments, questions on the report? No. Then the recommendations are that the committee consider and comment on the annual report of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee 2020-21 as attached Appendix A prior to consideration by the council. We'd add a 2.2 in that we include the details of engagement of the online meetings since we started doing them, and just if we can put a 2.3 in there, Chair, along the line, Hilary, along the lines of the thanks from the committee to the staff and everybody who's helped this year, please. Propose those recommendations. Could I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second that for you, Chair.
Thank you. And could we go to the vote, please, on those recommendations, Hilary?
So if you'd like to raise your hand if you are in agreement with those recommendations. And that is sufficient to approve. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, all. And moving on to item 12, starting on page 47 of the agenda, which is the update of the Corporate Peer Challenge Action Plan. Councillor Martin Steers-Hanscom to present, please. Thank you, Martin. Good evening.
Thank you, Chair, and I will be sharing the introduction with Councillor Clark, as that's in the joint names of Leader and Deputy Leader.
Thank you.
So, by way of introduction, to remind you that the Corporate Peer Challenge took place in January 2020, and the recommendations reflect the challenges we faced at that time. At that time, as a new administration in our first year, we very much welcome the peer challenge, and its mixture of political and professional advice was positive and encouraging. In particular, the key recommendations give us an opportunity as a council to move away from a perceived reputation of being risk averse to being more risk aware and, as the peer review said, brave. And it also gives us the opportunity to move towards being a much more outward facing council. The key recommendations are not necessarily in the right order, of course. For example, key recommendation 3, to develop a narrative for place, clearly comes before key recommendation 1, to broaden the council's focus on an ambitious place shaping agenda. I'll put my full Steve back in. So I'll hand over to Paul to continue, and then obviously both of us and Anthony will be willing to take questions.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Martin. So clearly a lot has changed in the world since January last year, the odd pandemic and other things. However, we still believe that the recommendations made in the review are valid for the future of this council and the community we serve once the impact of the pandemic has lessened. Indeed, the pandemic has shown the importance of external partnerships, being brave and communication with our communities, to just name but 3 of the recommendations. The huge demand placed on our staff in responding to the pandemic has meant that some of the recommendations have not been able to be addressed yet. And can I here break and say that the work done by the council officers has been exemplary, as has the work of members of this council. So thank you for that. This was anticipated when Cabinet adopted the action plan at its meeting on the 23rd of June 2020, when much of the timescale column was left blank due to the uncertainty at the time. We have now been able to add what we believe are realistic timescales for each action. And despite the pandemic, we have made really good progress in a number of key areas, in particular, launching of the Shaping Our Future and transformation programs. It is worth noting that a number of the recommendations, including the key recommendations around developing a place narratives, are linked to the local plan work, which itself has been delayed by the pandemic and the postponement of the examination sessions in March 2020. Adopting a local plan will then enable us to focus on these elements of the action plan. Finally, it is worth noting 17 of the 60 actions are marked as complete. Those shaded green on the action plan, of those, 2 of the recommendations, 42 and 58, regarding timings and length of meetings, are not being taken forward following decisions cross-party that we do not feel that these would work for us. However, all other recommendations are being adopted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Paul. Anthony, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Chair. Just one very quick comment. Just picked up on your work programme agenda item a few minutes ago. There were some updates on the overview and scrutiny actions that haven't quite made their way across fully onto here. Yeah. So we will, of course, update to take account of those. They are broadly consistent. It was just 1 or 2 points I just spotted on the way through. So, as I said, we will pick those up.
Thank you very much for that. It was a point I was going to raise, but don't need to now. So thank you for that one. Any other points on there anybody wishes to take up? And I can understand perfectly the rethink on the timing. This pandemic has actually showed that we do need to be able to adapt quickly and positively, which we have done as a council over the last year, and I think everybody's taken part in that. I think it's opened a few eyes as well into the way people work and everybody works, and it's not just the council. I think there's a lot going forward onto that one. But yes, as you say, Martin and Paul, it is something you tend to take forward, and whatever administration is here after May, I'm sure we'll take that into account. So thank you both for that one. Do I have any questions from anybody on this one, or any points they wish to raise? Nope, I've got no hands. So the recommendations to Cabinet are that the progress made on the Corporate Peer Challenge Action Plan out set out in Appendix A be noted. There are no other recommendations to Cabinet. I'm happy to propose that. So could I take the vote on that, please?
So if you'd like to raise your hands in the way that's become normal, please. Thank you. That is sufficient to approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. Thank you all. Moving on to agenda item 13, which is the local plan implementation. Now you have a supplementary agenda for this one, which has been issued. So to take this one, it's Paul Clark.
Actually, Nigel should be around somewhere and was going to talk to it.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Nigel?
Thank you, Chair. You've got quite a wide-ranging report.
Nigel, you're very, very quiet.
Ooh. Is that better?
No. Do you want to try with your earphone thing unplugged, your mic thing unplugged?
Yeah, let's ditch the headphones. Is that better?
That's better. Yeah, much better. Thank you.
Sorry. Let's go again. Yeah, wide-ranging report in front of you, as it says, looking at a programme of works to support the local plan. As we touch on in the report, although we don't have the inspector's further modifications yet following the local plan hearings, we are anticipating them very shortly. And given the commitments he made around raising any significant issues by the end of January, which has come and gone some time ago, we're not anticipating substantive change on the positions set out by the council on the key issues. So in light of that, we do need to consider now how best we're going to support implementation of the strategy set out in the plan, linking back to your previous item really on the corporate peer challenge. Given in particular, there's been obviously a passage of time since your previous decision of Cabinet on the supporting documents that we might produce in 2017. There's also been a lot of changes in national policy as well as local priorities by the joint administration. So Section 7 of the Cabinet report outlines a lot of that background, sets out the various resolutions that currently exist, corporate commitments, particularly around the climate change emergency, the peer review, and also government policy in relation to design, building efficiency and environmental matters. And so in light of that and considering everything in the round, section 8 of the report sets out to Cabinet a proposed way forward and a revised programme of work. So 3 key elements to that, I guess. First of all, as a first step, is the master planning guidance, which is attached as Appendix A, which is sort of procedural guidance that will update over time, that sets out how we now plan to take forward the delivery of the largest and most significant sites in the plan. And my colleague Helen Flage is here to answer any particular questions on that, and also a lot of the next points. The second element is now a revised programme of SPDs, so supplementary planning documents that support the local plan and set out detailed information on particular topic areas. So in addition to the existing developer contributions document that Cabinet looked at last summer, we're now looking at a kind of re-scoped suite of documents. So the design SPD still picking up on the input of overview and scrutiny from last year, but also broadening it to take account of national guidance, a sustainability SPD and a biodiversity SPD, and for each of those some supporting evidence to help underpin them around local character for the design guide, and things like ecology mapping to support where we go in terms of biodiversity and what we might ask for on these sites in terms of green infrastructure. And then the report kind of moves on to effectively how we're going to fund that. Obviously, given the council's financial situation, there's no new money with which to achieve this. It's about kind of reshuffling what resources we've already got. So the 2 key elements that we're looking to look at redoing or not doing to take this programme work forward was, firstly, in the budget there's a commitment put forward. It was in last year's budget originally for a potential focused review of the plan post-adoption, looking at sustainability matters. If you look at the narrative on the budget, that was largely around doing policy work that supported the administration's priorities on climate. So this revised programme of work very much still meets that agenda, but in a different way. Having done a more detailed review, there's a number of risks associated with doing a formal policy review, not least it might get overtaken by events. So looking to reassign that budget to support this work. And secondly, picking up on a resolution of Cabinet last year where they asked us to look again at community infrastructure levy. Again, we've had money rolled forward in the budget over a number of years, not least because you need an up-to-date adopted plan to actually adopt a SIL. And with all the ongoing government changes, there's quite a significant risk again that if we were to go down the path of community infrastructure levy now, we might get overtaken by events. Government proposals have included a potential overhaul of community infrastructure levy, and they've they'll set out their next steps on that in the spring or summer. So we think it's best not to pursue that right now and instead use that money to fund this revised programme of works and priorities that you have in front of you, which isn't to say that we're saying don't do SIL at all. We're simply saying don't do it now. It's something I think we can look at in terms of the budget setting cycle come the autumn. Hopefully we'll have some clarity at that point on where government's going, and it may be something we revisit, excuse me, at that point. So I think that's probably it for an overview. Obviously the report goes into quite a bit of detail on all those matters, but myself and Helen and Paul are here obviously if there's any questions from members.
Thank you, Nigel. Sam.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Sorry, I've got a few little bits and pieces, as is my typical way, and I apologise to other members for being a little bit detailed on this. This is just to sort of cover off, I'm going to jump between Appendix A and the additional document that we got. Hilary said something relating to the design SPD, but I think that's because it's not done yet. I certainly haven't seen the most recent draft of that, but I'll come back to that. In Appendix A, which is the master planning guidance, I know the chair and I did some work on trying to improve certain standards relating to environmental and also homes for life. And I feel that the master planning guidance may be a little bit weak or a little bit vague on these items. and it'd be interesting to see how they could be tightened up on those specific areas. So I think Councillor Levitt will be able to discuss the specific standard I'm talking about in terms of the Homes for Life, and obviously the environmental standards I'll come to now. So jumping over to the other document, which is this additional document we've got on item 7.20, something that we had requested was that we were going to put into the design SPD a minimum standard of either passive house or BREEAM very good or excellent. However, government legislation doesn't actually allow us to require that standard. Which is something that, I mean, various people, I think we need to be pushing back to government to allow us to do that, because I think that's really important. But we should be requiring the absolute maximum environmental standard allowed within the legislation, and that needs to be made very clear in the design SPD. I have sent some suggestions and some excerpts from other local plans from across the country to really maximize that. So we could allow for passive house and BREEAM excellent or very good within the design SPD. And there's some really good examples from across the country. And I've shared that with the portfolio holder for planning, but also for environment as well. And I think we possibly need to have a little bit of a sit down separately and discuss how we can implement those suggestions from other councils across the country who have already passed a local plan with these regulations in, how we can include that into the North Herts local plan. But also the regulations that Councillor Levitt has suggested, I think we need to include those as strict minimum standards, because they're not related to environmental standards, in the design SPD. So it would be very good for this committee to be able to look over the design SPD once again. And so I guess what I'm sort of proposing is that we have maybe an informal, I don't know, that would be my way of doing it, but whether that's in order, I don't know, sort of meeting to discuss the draft design SPD and what wording we need to have on terms of minimum standards for buildings, residential and commercial, or non-residential, in North Hertfordshire within the local plan, and also within the Homes for Life standard, I think I've got the name right, that Councillor Levitt has been suggesting. And I think I'll stop there because you might all be getting bored of my voice.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, it was the Homes for Life I was referring to at one point there. Paul, Nigel, do you want to come back on some of those points?
Yeah, I'll probably hand off to Helen in a moment in terms of the sort of the master planning and the design guide. But yeah, in broad terms, I think, yeah, more than happy to come back with a revised design guide SPD when it's ready. And as you say, kind of some sort of workshop arrangement as we're producing that sounds pretty sensible to me. I don't, Helen, did you want to jump in on any of the points?
Yeah, I was going to suggest that I think it would be useful to set up a bit of a task and finish group to sort of engage councillors on the actual scope and contents of the sustainability SPD, and make sure that we, you know, take all these sort of principles on board. And we've done a rough sort of draft in terms of the structure and content of the sustainability SPD, but it would be good to sort of circulate that to you and actually, you know, have a few meetings to make sure we get your proper input to that and where you want to see the emphasis. So that's what I would suggest.
Okay.
In terms of the master planning guidance note, that's really just setting out guidance on the process for master planning, you know, the stages that we would like landowners to go through, you know, working collaboratively with the council to produce a master plan. It's not really talking about what we expect to see in the master plan, but obviously the purpose of the sustainability and the design SPD will be to give clear guidance on what is actually in the master plans. So the two are related.
I think that as well, just before I come to Paul, relates to any SPDs that we get in place, that they automatically become part of the master planning process and become a key part of the considerations. I'm right on saying that, I believe, aren't I?
Yeah, well, the master plans will need to be compliant with the local plan policies when they're adopted. And obviously any SPD is an important material consideration that's also weighed in to the decision-making process. So the local plan and our SPDs are fundamental, really, in securing good quality outcomes from the master plans.
Thanks. Paul?
Yeah, no, I'll just follow on from that. Councillor Collins and yourself did some brilliant work on the design SPD, which I've kept seeking assurance is from Mr. Smith and Helen that are still being kept. And it's just that as things have evolved, as time has gone on, dragged on painfully with the inspector, and that's as far as I'll go on that particular one. We, things have evolved. We've got to, change in direction. The white paper, as much as there was some things in it that weren't people didn't like, there were some things about biodiversity and building standards that are good. So we're trying to address that, going forward. And on SIL, I do note in it says in the 2.3 recommendation not to preparation of community infrastructure for the district at this time, because in the national paper there was talk of a national community infrastructure levy. I'll put my teeth back in like Martin to say what I need. So there is that. So we will give it some time. However, I'm not prepared to leave it too long because developments are going on that aren't paying their way in the community, which was part of the reason we said we'd look at it, because too many developments are going ahead, adding to our community, which is great, but we need to be able to supply the infrastructure going forward. So as I say, there is a delay on it because we want to see what's that. There's no point us doing work and then we get told something completely different, because that's wasting our officers' time. So there is, I am asking for a time lag, so to speak.
Thanks, Paul. And yes, I do take your point on that one about the SIL and the time. We have over the last 5 or 6 years we've delayed the SIL a few times already, pending changes, sort of almost what we've been told were imminent changes in the government's approach to SIL. And I think we've had about 5 iterations of that in that time. I think we're getting to the point now where we may have to do something rather than nothing. But I think the main point with SIL is, and we've still got the other ways of getting money in through various means, and we can stick to those. And some, there are better ways and other ways of getting the attachments to that, particularly when we start coming to strategic sites as well, strategic site negotiations. And I think the process you've got there on a strategic site project board and that allows it to be tailored quite tightly to a specific strategic site, because they're not all going to be the same. You can't have a one type fits all for strategic sites. And I think we're going to have to be, when we come to that one, it's quite important that we get that in an early stage. And just coming back on a bit about how we go forward with the SPDs, I think, remember a couple of years ago, we did the sort of parking member forum workshop thing that we did, which worked quite well. We took a different approach on that, with all members being involved if they wanted to be, and the way we put the parking strategy together. I think that might be quite a good way of doing that again, is a fairly informal but structured way of looking at those and getting input. Sam?
Yeah, Chair, just following on from that point, really. With the design SPD, as I understand it, and I'm going to look to Nigel to nod or shake his head, the draft that we've got is pretty much there, ready for cabinet, and it just needs a few tweaks and bits and pieces that we're talking about. And if that is the case, then perhaps we could just have a very quick sort of adjustment, if you like, to include some of the bits that may have been sort of skimmed over or not quite included, because you and I didn't quite understand the government legislation at the time, that the government is preventing us doing exactly what we want to do. But I think there are some very clear ways forward to achieve what Overview and Scrutiny suggested last time, and then that's pretty much done, rather than all member workshop. And as long as we make it all 3 parties, and it's before May, because so far I'm aware that only 2 parties have inputted on this, and I feel that all 3 parties should probably have a voice, though hopefully the third of those parties does speak up on it. It would be nice to have that happen very quickly so it's out of the way. And then for the other SPDs, I think we do need all member workshops, as you suggest. Just to sort of clarify, the comments I was making relating to Passive House and BREEAM standards, and the comments I was making about Homes for Life, speaking for Councillor Levitt really, that was all relating to the design SPD, not the sustainability SPD, which is separate. These things need to be in the design SPD. If there's additional stuff in the sustainability SPD, great, but they absolutely need to be in the design SPD. Coming from somebody who spends an awful lot of time staring at very detailed technical regulations, I know skipping something out is quite easy. And unintended consequences come along quite quickly.
Thanks, Paul. Just your thoughts on that approach? Are you happy with that?
I'm happy in getting myself off of mute. Yes, no, I'm happy with that proposed approach, because it's making sure Sam's quite right. The eye is in the detail, because if we don't put it where it's meant to be, it will get, developers will drive the horse and cart through it, and that is not what we want. Part of the master plan process is us taking control of what we want in our district.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So if we could take that up outside this meeting and get something arranged, that'd be great. Claire, you had your hand up earlier. Oh, sorry, Nigel, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, if I could just quickly just pick up on Councillor Collins' point. You're right. A lot of the sort of, I guess, nuts and bolts work for the design guide, you're right, is there and kind of banked, and picking up your comments before. What we do need to do with the design guide is kind of bolt a front end on it, just to bring it up to speed with current and new national design guidance. So that's where in the report we talk about doing some sort of character appraisals of the district's key settlements, which again links back to your peer challenge comments about sort of defining a narrative around place for North Hertfordshire. So kind of getting a bit under the skin of, what makes the places in North Hertfordshire the places they are. I think that's the bit where the draft of design SPD you saw before was a bit out of step with what is now national guidance. I know, again, Helen, if there's anything you just wanted to add on that particular point.
Yeah, so I think since the designed SPD was published in a draft form, there's been a lot of change of direction really from the government. The government's being quite prescriptive now about what it expects to see in a design guide if they're going to be given sufficient weight in the planning decision making process. So in 2019, the government issued a national design guide that it's never done that before, that has 10 characteristics in it. And government guidance says that all local design guides should be in accordance with those 10 characteristics. So that's really important. And particularly because that does pick up on, like you say, sort of environmental technologies and also biodiversity and nature and landscape. So that we need to make sure our guide accords with those 10 characteristics. And then the second thing is the government doesn't want generic design guides to be produced that just have sort of generic principles in. The government wants local design guides to be rooted in place, and they must be based on detailed character appraisals of settlements. So that means appraisals of the landscape, of the townscape, and the architectural quality. So that is a chunk of work that needs doing to underpin, our design guide. And then the third aspect really is on master planning, because yes, we want the design guide to be applied to all different types of planning applications and sizes, but we also want the design guidance to give guidance on how to produce a master plan. So we want to sort of create a chapter in the design guide that provides, that clear guidance. So there is a bit of work to be done to, bring it into line with national planning policy guidance, but as a result it will carry a lot more weight in the decision making process, which is what we obviously want it to do, if that all makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thanks, Helen. And of course that's going to be quite a challenge in this district, because I think that's sort of assuming that most local authorities are based around one area, whereas we've got a huge diversity in the type of architecture, type of towns we have. So I think that's going to be quite a challenge to make sure we tick all 10 principles for all the different settlements. So yeah, I think that's going to be quite a challenge for you.
Yeah, we'll need to think about that and how we do it most effectively.
Yeah, thanks for that. And perhaps that's something we'll pick up at that informal meeting as well, I think. Okay, I've got no other hands up at the moment. Just one little thing, Nigel, if you could give us an update. We talked right at the beginning there about the inspector was expected to bring back any significant issues by the end of January, which he hasn't, which I won't say too much, but this doesn't necessarily mean he hasn't got anything. I won't say too much on that one again. Just to give us as an overview in Scrutiny Committee, a quick rough idea as to what the where we are now with the local plan and what the sort of rough timetables are likely to be.
Yeah, certainly that's subject to a separate report going to Cabinet next week. We're hoping, obviously it's time of the report, that the inspector will publish his further modifications coming from the latest hearings in time to inform that meeting. As we said, yeah, we're not presently anticipating significant change. The report to Cabinet basically asked for permission to go out to consultation on those changes following the local elections. So that consultation will take place in probably May, June. And then after that, the responses go back to the inspector. And obviously it's then for him to raise any further issues. But essentially at that point, he's indicated he's looking to move towards finalising his report. So again, in the published Cabinet report on that matter says we're hoping to bring it to full council for a decision on adoption in the second half of this year.
Okay. Is it possible he could actually start more hearings?
In theory, yes, he could, but having been through 2 rounds already, in fairness, at the final hearing he held in February, he was pretty clear that he was closing the hearing sessions into the North Hertfordshire local plan. So I can only report what he said, Chair.
Well, thank you. We might take some reassurance from that one, I hope. Tom. You're on mute, Tom.
Thank you. Yeah, just one question that occurred to me looking at the report. I just wondered if there was a place in that report for some acknowledgement or explanation of the role and function of neighbourhood plans, because I couldn't really see any reference to them in the report. And I know that it's possibly a bit tangential, but on the other hand, they are very important to the parishes and in their view, a very sort of significant level of the planning process. And I just wondered if we should be making a bigger nod to the parishes in that respect and have some kind of reference to the neighbourhood plans, given that there are, I don't know how many exist at the moment, but I know that there's a couple that are on the verge of being adopted, and I'm sure there'll be more in the very near future. So I just thought perhaps it would be appropriate to include some kind of reference to that in the report here.
You're thinking of somewhere in the process thing, Tom, in the actual master planning process. Oh. Nigel, Paul, do you want to come back on that one?
I can do briefly, yeah. Obviously, the report in front of you sort of largely around the work that the council itself is going to drive. Councillor Tyson's right, obviously neighbourhood plans are a very important community-led part of the planning process, but ultimately, yeah, they are formulated and driven by the community, and we do all we can to guide and help them along the way. So I think it sits slightly outside this report, but we acknowledge the importance of them, and as Councillor Levitt just alluded to, I think with both the master planning process and hopefully now finally a bit of certainty about where the local plans go, and we can start bringing sort of neighbourhood plans into the fold a bit into those processes and make sure we're all kind of pulling in the same direction to get the best out of these sites for all the local areas in the district.
Yeah, I was just thinking along the lines of where you've got that 3.2 process and you've got the bit about ensure effective community engagement, including parish council, and build a sense of community ownership. It may be worth referring possibly to that there and taken into account.
Yeah,
it picks up Tom's point and reinforces the that they are there to be taken note of.
David, could I
That's
say,
one of the phrases I've
Yeah,
highlighted
Paul.
myself actually in the report.
yeah, can I say, yeah, adopted neighbourhood plans and
Yeah.
emerging neighbourhood plans, so we capture both sides of it, because
Yeah.
they're in different forms. Because I was looking at 2.2, but I'm happy to go, to put it where you suggest. It's taken account of, because Tom's quite right. Yeah, we do have a large rural community, and we do need to take account of their needs, within planning.
Yeah, and it puts it into that bulleted list as well, doesn't it, to make it quite specific, and it can't be avoided. I think same with if we can put something in about the design into that bit as well, taking into account the supplementary planning documents somewhere within that. Yeah.
Because a lot of the neighbourhood plans will have design aspirations and design principles, won't they? That will feed into the sort of settlement chapters, if you imagine that, in the design SPD, and they'll also inform the site-specific master plans as well. So yeah, it's a really important link. Yeah,
again, there's a thing in there. It says clear site-specific vision, provide a common design framework to secure it. So there's tweaks around the wordings where with that you can make it a wee bit more specific, I think, in that list. So if we can have a look at that, that would be great.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. All right, thanks. Okay, I've got no more hands up. So the recommendations are to Cabinet, the North Hertfordshire Master Planning Guidance attached Appendix A is approved and recognised as a material consideration in determining the relevant planning applications. And I think with the note on that we take into account the comments from the Overview and Scrutiny Committee tonight. And the officers are authorised to commence work on a revised and updated programme of supplementary planning documents and supporting evidence as set out in report. And that to support recommendation 2.2, Cabinet resolve not to pursue the preparation of a community infrastructure levy for the district at this time, and authorise reprofiling of existing approved revenue budgets for community infrastructure levy of £87,000 and a potential single issue review of the local plan, £80,000 to deliver this work. And to consider making any further recommendation to Cabinet. And I think we've been quite succinct on where the things we'd like to see in there as well. I think you got notes of most of those there, Nigel.
Yep.
Right, thank you for that one. If we could just move to the vote, can I have a seconder, please, for that one, those recommendations?
To second that for you, Chair.
Thank you, Kate. Take to the vote, please, Hilary.
Yes, can I just clarify, do you want something specific written in the referral to Cabinet regarding your meetings?
Yes, please. Yeah.
That's fine. Because then Cabinet can decide how those are set up. Okay.
Okay.
So if you're happy with that, if you can raise your hands if you're in agreement with those recommendations as discussed, please. And that is sufficient to approve. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Hilary. Moving on to item 14, starting on page 107, I think that is, which is Q3 2021, performance against performance indicators. Martin and Rachel, please. Martin.
Yes, I think I'll hand over to Rachel on this one. The report speaks for itself, but obviously happy to answer any questions if they come up.
Thank you, Martin.
Okay, thank you. So this is the third quarter monitoring report, which shows data to the end of December. So page 107 has the status summary, and you can see we've got some amber and red indicators there, and also the direction of travel indicators that are going down. The number is going up, so we have 11 of those that have a downward direction of travel now. So collection rates continue to be below target due to the pandemic, with sales ledger and an NDR indicators showing as red as we continue to try and support businesses through this difficult time. Page 109 also shows that council tax is now starting to suffer as well. So levels were holding their own prior to December, but it's now moved to an amber indicator as we are giving people instalments that go into the new year. So collection rates are not meeting what they would normally be. Page 111 shows the rates of homelessness prevention and relief are doing well. So performance continues to be good in the area, reflecting the hard work of the team, although the government policy of everyone in has meant that there's an increase in the level of households now in temporary accommodation. So just to give a verbal update, page 113, at the time of writing the report, we didn't have the data for the number of environmental health inspections completed. As previously reported, the team are basically working on supporting pandemic, so they're not actually carrying out many inspections. So as at this point in time, it was just 13.6%, mainly due to the fact that one businesses were closed, so therefore they're not open to inspection, but also that they were unable to inspect first lockdown. And then page 114, the number of visits to the leisure centres is now based on the recovery plan that's been approved by Cabinet, showing as on track, although this information was based on a March reopening date at the time the report was written. As mentioned earlier in the meeting, a report is going to Cabinet on the 16th of March regarding keeping outdoor pools open for longer in the 21-22 year, which will hopefully help to support these levels. And then finally on page 117, as mentioned and requested at the last ONS meeting, these are the numbers for YouTube views for each of the committee meetings, and this will be provided as part of the quarterly monitoring going forward for information. The list of meetings for 19-20 shows the number of physical attendance by members of the public, and the 2021 shows the numbers of live and other views of YouTube, so it could be views of the recording of the meetings. Although you can't directly compare them, it does demonstrate a wider audience is being reached and being engaged, albeit by viewing and recording with the council and committee meetings. So committee services will continue to collect this data regarding the live views and total views 1 week after the meeting, and this will be presented for information only along with the monitoring. So that was all I was going to mention on that report. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Rachel. Just a couple of comments, particularly on that last little bit about the meetings thing, which we asked for over you. So it's really interesting reading that one. I've been playing with it in an Excel spreadsheet. That's how sad I am. But it is quite surprising the different engagements. Also surprising which are the most popular meetings for people to go to and attend before and after as well. And quite another telling thing actually is the length of meetings have got shorter since we've been virtual overall, which seems quite interesting. But that's a really nice to see that, and thank you for that report on that and that bit on that. Really nice to see that. Really interesting bit of work on that. So thank you. Any other comments or questions for Rachel from anybody? No. Right. In that case, the recommendation is the report be noted. So I think we can just go straight to vote on that one, Hilary, please.
Yes, if you can just raise your hands if you agree to note the report, please. And that is agreed. Thank you.
Thank you. And moving on to, just checking the time, the item 15, New Year Performance Indicators is monitored in 2021-22. Councillor Martin Steers-Hanscom and Rachel again.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, clearly going forward into the next civic year, we need to measure what's realistic given what we know now. So the proposals there simply reflect what we think are realistic, and I'll pass over to Rachel to give you the detail, Chair.
Thank you. Rachel.
Thank you. So this is a report going to Cabinet to present the PIs and associated targets to be monitored by overview and scrutiny for the 21-22 year. All the PIs were reviewed by the service directors and exec members as part of the corporate business planning process in January. Just to note, there are no new or deleted indicators proposed for the 21-22 year, and the only changed indicators showing on page 122, table 2, which lists the amended performance indicators. So we have the council tax and NDR collection rates, and these have been revised downwards for the new year temporarily to accommodate the fact that collection rates will probably be affected going into the new year, as customers and businesses have been given extended instalments for the 2021 payment. So it's likely that that will then impact going into the new year. So they've been temporarily adjusted downwards to accommodate that. And then the electricity, gas and energy. So they've revised the target. So they've revised the target to 95% of what the target was for 2021. And that's to take into account the energy saving measures that have already been put in place, but also those that are proposed to be put in place. And then finally, you have the number of visits to the leisure centres. So this has been adjusted in line with the recovery plan. And just for information, these figures were based on April reopening dates. So they are in line with current government guidance.
Thank you.
All the other PIs and targets remain unchanged.
Okay, thank you for that, Rachel. Fully understand the reasons for some of those changes and that. Any further comments, any questions on this one? No. Again, the report is for noting. So Harif, we can run to the vote on that one, please.
Please raise your hands if you agree to note the report. Thank you. And that's agreed. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. So the next one is item 16, third quarter monitoring report on key projects. Martin and Rachel again.
Thank you, Chair. As again, I'll leave Rachel to deal with the details. Happy to be involved in questions.
Thank you. So the third quarter monitoring report, the full list of projects being monitored is included as Appendix A. So page 138.3 of the report shows we're currently monitoring 13 projects, 6 showing as green status, 5 amber, 1 completed and 1 pending. 8.4, just to flag up, the implementation of the customer and member portals has moved to amber from green. The customer portal has gone live with the soft launch. However, the member portal did not hit its December target date due to a technical issue, which has now been rectified. So that should be going live shortly. Page 1318.5, the renovation of Howard Park play area. This again has moved to amber due to a delay in delivery of playground equipment. So it's estimated at the moment that the project will overrun by approximately 4 weeks as a result, but should finish swiftly once the equipment's received. Point 8.6, this action refers to the preparation for Brexit with a due date of the 31st of December 2020. That has now obviously passed, and Brexit has now happened. So this action has been marked as complete. However, officers will continue to monitor and record relevant issues within the service areas via the corporate risk entry, which is still being updated. And then finally, I was just going to give a verbal update. So obviously the crematorium hearing date took place on the 22nd of February. And the update I got today was that the decision is expected week commencing the 15th, so next week. So hopefully they should hear something soon about that. And that was all I was going to mention on that one. If anyone's got any questions.
Thank you, Rachel. It's nice to see we've finally got a date somewhere near on the crematorium. At least we know when we're going to know by. So see when we can finally move on with that one. Is there the Brexit one? Is there? I think there's a wind-up sort of project board meeting scheduled, isn't there, or something for it?
Yeah, the project board have kind of at the point where they signed it off, because everything that was unknown is now known. So they can plan for the things that have actually happened and they need to look at, and they're quite service specific in some areas. So that's why they're updating the corporate risk, and that's obviously being monitored by Finance, Audit and Risk Committee and the Risk Management Group.
Thanks, Rachel. I've got no further hands up on that one I can see. No. Again, recommendation is that delivery against key projects for 2021 be noted and commented on by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and any other recommendations, which we have none. So again, Hilary, if you can take us to vote on noting on that one, please.
Okay, if you can just raise your hands if you agree with the recommendation as just read out. And that's agreed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hilary. And we're moving on to item 17, starting on page 145. New Year report on projects to be monitored for 2021-22. Again, Martin and Rachel.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just one slight correction at the beginning of the report, and that is that the where it says new council priority, it's actually the current council priority. We have moved on to the priorities in the current council plan, and that's just a minor point. But yes, the details Rachel will be able to go through, and obviously happy to be involved in the debate.
Thank you. Rachel?
Yes, apologies for that. I thought I had made that change, but clearly hadn't done it properly. So with this one, again, Appendix A shows the full list of projects and any milestones and dates where these are known at the moment. So there are 15 projects planning to be monitored for the 21-22 year. And the list consists of projects which are brought forward from the current year. So for example, local plan, crematorium, but also projects in the council plan or in the capital programme for the 21-22 year that's been approved by Cabinet. And that was all I was going to say, really. Obviously, milestones will follow on the monitoring reports once those are set.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. Questions? Anthony, you want to come in on this one? Thanks.
Sleeping baby, hopefully she'll stay that way. Just a very minor point on the list of projects. Churchgate now sits with the commercial directorate. It doesn't sit with me. Given my other responsibilities, Steve Crowley and his team have taken the lead on that one. That just needs to be tweaked.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That moved.
Any other questions or queries on this one? No. So we have the recommendation 2.1 is for the committee to note the key projects subject to capacity that will be the key focus of the council 2021-22. No other recommendations. Again, Hilary, can we do the usual?
You can raise your hands if you are in agreement with that recommendation. Thank you. And that is sufficient to carry. Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, thank you very much in that. So what next item we're going to take is we're going to take item 21, which is the part 2 report first. I need to go to item 20 first, which is exclusion of the press and public, and to consider passing the following resolution. That under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public will be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the following report will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the said act, brackets as amended, which I propose we move into part 2. Can I have a seconder for that, please?
Happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you. Please, can we take the vote on that one?
If you can just raise your hands if you're in agreement with the recommendation, please. And that is agreed. Thank you,
everybody. Thank you. So we'll move into part 2. Can you take us into the details of how we do that, please, Hilary?
So you will be sent an invitation. If you can accept the invitation to join the breakout room, please. Thank you.
Hello all.
Hello, Chair.
Thank you for that.
So we'll need to do another roll call, but I didn't know if you wanted to take a break before we did that, so we didn't have to do another roll call after that.
I'm just thinking. I think we probably let's do a quickie. Has anybody got anything else to bring up in this particular part of it, or are we happy with what you've covered in part 2?
Right, looks like most people are happy. So shall I do a roll call for you?
Yes, please.
Okay. Councillor Aspinall.
I'm here.
Bryant. Councillor Bryant.
Here.
Thank you. Collins.
Hello.
Hone.
You.
Hunter.
Present.
Levitt.
Here.
McNally.
Here.
Nash.
Here.
Nguala.
Here.
Tyson.
I'm here.
Billing.
Yeah.
Derbyshire. Councillor Derbyshire, are you still here?
I'm here, Hilary.
Thank you. We've got exec members, Councillor Steers Hanscom.
Yes, I'm here.
Councillor Clark.
Hanging on.
Councillor Hoskins.
Yeah, here.
And Councillor Albert.
Yep.
Okay. Councillor Dennis Harburg has gone.
I'm here.
Oh, sorry, I do apologise, Councillor. And then we have officers Anthony Roche.
Yep, here.
Nigel Smith. Is Nigel gone?
I think all the non-commercial guys
Yeah,
have gone.
sorry, where are we? Steve Crowley.
Yes, I'm here.
Chloe Gray.
Yes, I'm here.
Chris Robson.
Present.
And then William Edwards on IT and myself. Hopefully I haven't missed anybody. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Hilary. Thank you, everybody. Just before we start this one, as we're back in the public session, I need to declare that I have a declarable pecuniary interest in any item relating to Garden Square Shopping Centre, as I hold 2 licenses tenancies with that particular organisation. So if we need to discuss that item, I will leave the meeting and the Vice Chair will take over for me. So anybody got any items they wish to discuss further in this particular part? Please raise your hand. No, I've got no hands up. Does anybody wish to discuss the Garden Square Shopping Centre any further in this part? No, I've got no hands. In that case, we've obviously exhausted that all in the other part 2. So the recommendations are for the committee to note this report. So if we can move to the vote, please, Hilary, on that one.
If you can please all raise your blue hands if you are in agreement to note the report. And I have sufficient for that to be carried. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilary. Thank you, everybody. That concludes that item. Item 19 is members' questions, and I have none received. So thank you, everybody, for that. Got through a long agenda fairly quickly. Meeting is closed at 9:12, Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Thank you, Chair. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.